Chapter 10 La Via Farrelia. A woman named Esanhelossa greeted the boys. "Ah, good, you are back." Thefia explained what happened. She had a Senera noblewoman's accent. She turned to Linsco, and her tone became softer, more motherly. "Oh, you are right, Linsco." She was several years older than Cara, and half a head taller than Linsco, with brown eyes. Like all married women, she wore a wimple, and her clothes, while fine, were not ostentatious. They were yellow, Seneran style. Linsco nodded. "Good. Now remember to rest. I'm glad you have returned safely." As spies were a fairly major concern, ways of confirming people's identity had been developed, mostly consisting of using shadow magic to detect each other's souls and asking obscure personal questions. Neither was foolproof. Answers to the questions could be learned, and any Soletta worth their salt knew shadow magic and were probably skilled enough to disguise their soul, but they were better than nothing. They ran through that, and the boys left to find Thefia, though he was looking around and looking down warily. Linsco and Longue-Sœur only got about 3 steps in before the latter tripped. He stood, muttering in dialect, and glared at a boy about 2 years older than him, who looked like a larger, blonder, richer version of Linsco. He was wearing brown and gold, the colors of his house, and his signature look of superiority, as Longue-Sœur called it. If one looked very closely, they would see that the boy's jaw was slightly crooked, suggesting that it had been broken at one point and not healed quite right. "Good afternoon, Zebbocron," said Longue-Sœur, his voice barely hiding his anger. He was speaking Quinian again, but his accent was stronger than usual. Linsco was shaking his head furiously, trying in vain to get him to just leave. Zebbocron smiled. "So you do know Quinian. How about you speak that, instead of Elaine with nasal vowels? We are in Quinia, after all. Anyway, how wonderful that Wilbourceau and his friends have returned." Longue-Sœur stiffened at the provincial epithet, which was on the tamer side of his reactions. Usually he started yelling. What Zebbocron had called Longue-Sœur was one of several variations of the derogatory term for someone from Beretta, which parodied Beretan diminutives. In this case, the one used by Longue-Sœur. "Did you hear what happened to Beretta? I would say that it is a tragedy, but I think it is a good thing. Whatever administration the Versailles have will likely be much more effective than what passes for a provincial government down there." Zebbocron shook his head. "See, this is what happens when you let illiterate farmers run everything." He blinked, then chuckled and smiled. "Oh, sorry, you probably do not understand half of what I just said. Anyway, what took so long? Did your little friend get distracted again?" Linsco flinched. It was partially right. Longue-Sœur sighed. "He's right here, Zebbocron. I know you can see him." His accent had thickened, though he was trying to hide it. Zebbocron looked around theatrically before his gaze finally found Linsco. "Oh, there he is! Sorry, Linsco, I did not see you there." Linsco glared at him. He was beginning to have second thoughts about leaving being the best option. "Well, I see you have finally scraped together the funds to afford more than one set of clothes, and have either decided to become a thief or have extraordinary luck, because there is no way that some Ozinin farmer would be able to afford weapons of that quality." He blinked and laughed again. "Oh, there I go again, using words that you certainly cannot understand." Linsco put a hand on Esanhelossa's hilt, and immediately regretted it as she began shouting about how Zebbocron or his father would have been a better rechasico. She was also complaining about his opinions on Beretans. She considered them to be too positive. He muttered that Linsco had been a duke's son as well, and she did not seem to like him very much. He was about to mention how unhappy she had been about how Linsco had only taken one wife and how few slaves he had, and then remembered that one of the people she had mentioned was Duke Garadezo. Zebbocron looked over at him. "What? Did you say something at Linsco?" Linsco glared at him. "Sorry, if you want to be understood, you should try speaking at an audible volume." Linsco made an angry Linsco noise. Zebbocron smiled. "Intelligibly. Oh, and whilst I appreciate your sudden interest in history, I must say that hat looks quite silly. Does it talk?" Longue-Sœur smiled. "Really, Zezé? I thought you knew your history better than that. Duke Linsco the Short was the one with the talking hat." He had walked in on a confrontation between Violenta and Liesa, which had culminated in the former trapping the latter in Elise Conseco's hat because he had the misfortune of being there. Zebbocron frowned, still managing to maintain his snide air. Zazu? What kind of a name is that? Longuezeux blinked, realizing he had used a dialect nickname and silently cursing himself for the slip. Anyway, Zebbocron continued, smiling again, I am glad that you Borgny have finally seen the value of teaching history. I suppose I should not be surprised it took this long. Even now you are barely part of this country. Lisco had to physically hold his friend back to keep him from attacking. Knowing that he would not be able to hold back the larger boy forever, he called for Thefia and together they dragged him away. You will not always have your half-gradenta friend to rescue you, Zebbocron called after them, especially since she will probably betray you soon. What he had called Thefia was similar to radio, the word for rat, much like a certain other word he had previously called Longuezeux, which sounded like Borneo. It was a very insulting term. Thefia frowned and sighed, but otherwise ignored him. The Zisha ain't no traitor! Longuezeux shouted back, mostly in dialect. Lisco shouted in agreement. You are proving my point. They sat down next to a soldier called Kunzi, who managed the great feat of being even quieter than Lisco. She was from Séravine, and Séravine was in Beretta, and unlike Longuezeux, was Quinion right and actually from a farming family. One might think this was a good thing, but it came with its own set of problems. Zebbocron and his friends still called her a heretic, no matter how much she insisted that she was not a Layan right. Unlike Longuezeux, whose torments had made him angry and defensive, always feeling the need to prove himself, Gonzi had retreated in on herself. She endured and shrunk back, but never fought. By nature she was quiet, and preferred to fight her battles from afar with a bow and arrow, though she knew how to use a sword if it came down to it. But this part of her had become even more pronounced after she left her province. Longuezeux sighed. How do you do that? Thefia frowned. Do what? Ignore him like that. Well, I've been dealing with mine and Elisicial siblings my whole life. That might explain some of it. You two should try doing the same. You know this is just what he wants. Her tone was beginning to take on that maternal quality it often did in situations like this. Longuezeux sighed and crossed his arms. I know, I can't stand how he says those things about us. His accent was stronger than usual. He might leave us alone if we don't react. Her tone was soft and even, still maternal. Nisco admired her ability to stay calm in these situations. Or he might think it's all right to say it, Longuezeux said. We don't got his fancy books or learning or nothing, but that don't mean he can go around acting like he's better than us. She nodded. You're right, Longuezeux. Longuezeux. His tone was a little harder than usual. It ain't right that he does this, she continued. But still, giving him a reaction is what he wants. Her tone brightened a little as they moved on from that topic. So, how'd it go with Via Silenta, Ilzisnia, and Vildirmos? Longuezeux sighed. He was still glaring at Zebbocron, who had returned to his own conversations. Fine. I'm still worried about my family, especially Ma and the baby. I'm sorry about boy, Gonzi mumbled. Rather than disguising her accent, like Longuezeux, she just avoided talking where someone like Zebbocron could hear. Though the people of Séravine and Bori acted like they hated each other more than anything, when they actually met, it was usually treated as more of a joke than anything. And in the military, where most did not think highly of Beretans in general, local rivalries mattered much less. Is Séravine the same way? Longuezeux asked. She nodded. I'm sorry. Do you know if your family's all right? She shook her head. I've been praying for them every night. So will I. What about yours? She asked. Since my griad no chance, I was already asking for their help. Verisika walked over, curious as to who these newcomers were and why Linsco was carrying weapons that looked suspiciously like Arcania and Soreso. Good afternoon, Consika. Are these your friends? Longuezeux laughed. Consika? Looks like you got the opposite problem as me. Northerners did not generally put diminutives after nasal vowels and turned it into an oral vowel instead. For example, Via Mirsha had called Ferron Ferracicial instead of Ferroncicial. As evidenced by Conzi's nickname, Beradins did not care. When a convenient consonant was not available, a nasal vowel would do. Ardarans and Southern Lessians and Alenians would put diminutives after nasal vowels, though they did not go so far as to put them after consonants. Conzi smiled. She nodded. I guess Lance is also Beradin, but he's from Bari. Look, it ain't my fault that they made St. Alminio the cathedral instead of St. Magria. St. Alminio's too small, and we were the cathedral before reunification, said Lanxeux. Same for Saravine being the capital instead of Bari. Bari's history is so much richer than Saravine's, and we got a better church. Bari ain't placed well. It's practically an Ardara. And are you saying you want to go back to before reunification? 'Cause I thought you didn't like it when people say you're a schismatic or a heretic. Anyway, that's just the Alayan Church. Quinians are the original. But Church Alayan's a better language. Adelicite's got all those crazy sounds, and I've heard the princess trying to make sense of Adelicite grammar. It ain't pretty. Church Alayan don't exactly got the easiest grammar neither, and it's got some crazy sounds too. Better than Adelicite. So who are your friends? Are they the ones who went with the queen? Vedisika asked. Consi nodded. I'm Lanxeux, and these two are Linsko and Thefia, said Lanxeux. Lanxeux! Well, that's just about the most berated name I've ever heard. Vedisika looked at Consi. He even has you beaten! Not that there's anything wrong with that, of course. Lanxeux sighed. Good. Consi nodded, smiling. Lanxeux smiled. But that ain't even all of it. Very berated. Vedisika looked at Linsko. Linsko! Your parents must have enjoyed history then, said Vedisika. Linsko nodded. His grandfather was Corino, said Lanxeux. Vedisika frowned. Why'd you answer instead of him? Sorry, is that a rude question? Linsko shook his head. He don't talk much or very loudly, so if there's something else to say, we say it, said Lanxeux. That's strange. Why? Linsko smiled and shrugged. He knew he was strange, and he knew, at least partially, why he was strange. But he did not think it was very wise to say that. We don't know, Lanxeux said. At least they did not know anything they could say. Vedisika nodded. I see. So what's your name? Lanxeux asked. Anyasika. But if you're anything like Konsika, I'm guessing that won't be the only thing you call me. He smiled. Probably not. He was glad to find someone who felt that way about his nicknaming, and him in general. It was refreshing. So I heard you were gone a long time. Why? Lanxeux and Thefia glanced at Linsko. He sighed, but nodded. Just don't explain how, he said. He had told them what had happened on the way back. The story had managed to get a smile even out of the stoic King Ridero. Linxijo was captured by the Rosene, and we had to rescue him. It took a while. Lanxeux explained. Vedisika looked at Linsko sympathetically. I'm sorry. I've seen what they can do before. Consi nodded, thinking of her family. I'm all right now, Linsko said. Vedisika smiled. That's good. Alicaria walked over. Good afternoon, Anyasika. Oh, good afternoon, Resha. Did Maba write? She nodded. Lanxeux blinked. You're Ma can write? And you can read? Vedisika shook her head, smiling. Oh, no. She asks a noblewoman, and I have Resha, she lied. You can read? Alicaria nodded. Hey, enough. He blinked. Oh, all right. Well, we should go. Vedisika nodded. Yes, it was nice to meet you. Lanxeux smiled. It's nice to meet y'all, too. They left. He frowned. You were pretty quiet, Thefasija. Why? He tried to use northern diminutives and be more consistent with how he formed them when they were not alone. She frowned. That scarf. I feel like I've seen it before, but I can't remember where. He shrugged. Maybe a noblewoman had something like it? Maybe, but where did she get it? How? I don't know. It was probably a gift. It ain't none of our business. I guess, she said, but she sounded unsure. Vedisika and Alicaria left and went to the tavern. They ignored Sio's request and found a woman a few years older than Cara. She was of average height, a few inches taller than Cara, and had hazel eyes. A young child, about 3 or 4, was sitting in her lap. He looked sad and a little confused. He had white blonde hair like most Saletti, and his mother's hazel eyes. He had a bad habit of trying to hold on to his mother's collar or put his hand down her dress. Both of them were wearing black. She tried to smile when she saw them. "Good afternoon." She had a low-class Sanaran accent. "Sorry about Keshelkiso. I couldn't find no one to watch him." The 2 girls sat. "Good afternoon, Farrelia," Verisika said. She shook her head. "Via Farrelia. Sorry," she said. "I'm sorry about your husband." Alicaria nodded. Via Farrelia sighed. "It's all right." "You mind saying how it happened?" Alicaria asked. Via Farrelia shook her head, smiling sadly. "How do you think? We're at war." "Good afternoon." Cara sat with them. She looked up at Via Farrelia and met her eyes. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm fine, really," Via Farrelia said. Cara did not look convinced. Gashel frowned. "Then why do you cry every night?" he asked. Via Farrelia sighed and looked to the spies. "So what have you learned?" "Old Zilenta came up here. Miss Pompier's wife and son were with her, the elder one." Via Farrelia nodded. "'Cause of what happened in Via Farrelia?" Cara nodded. Geshel frowned. "What happened?" "The Rossini were attacking them, Keshelkiesel," Via Farrelia explained. Geshel's eyes widened. "The Queen's working with the Rossini?" Via Farrelia shook her head. "No, they're working on their own." She looked back at the spies. "Has the Queen returned yet?" Cara nodded. "Yes, and I've been thanking Bjorn for it ever since. Something I'd never thought I'd say. And funny thing about what you just said, actually. She thinks we're the ones working with the Rossini." The others stared at her in disbelief. Geshel frowned. "But they're bad." "Exactly," Cara said. "Why does she think that?" Via Farrelia asked. "Apparently, the reason she took so long is 'cause one of her soldiers got captured by the Rossini, and she says there are some Saletti working with them," Cara said. "One of us with the Rossini!" Verisika said, somewhere between incredulous and indignant. "That's what she said," Cara said. "I think the idea's laughable, and so did old Silitha, but the others didn't say nothing." "Verisika, Alicaria, did you hear anything about it?" Via Farrelia asked. They shook their heads. "I didn't think to ask," Verisika said. Alicaria nodded. "Neither did I." "All right," Via Farrelia said. "So what's happening with Via Silitha?" "Well, she ain't happy about the Queen disappearing for 2 weeks like that, and I think I agree with her. If she's trying not to look like a bad queen, she ain't doing no good job of it, between this and everything with the Saletti. Queen Silentha said she was gone for so long 'cause Veron's godson got taken by the Rossini and they had to rescue him. Old Silentha also got quite scared when Queen Silentha mentioned Veron's godson's name. Via Silentha, the niece Pompier, the boys, and the princess all talked after. I wanted to listen in, but I didn't want to risk the prince trying to listen as well, and asking odd questions. Sods, I've been chasing after him for 2 weeks. I needed a nap." She smiled a little. "Well, if I found out I'm a spy, I wouldn't be surprised if they just thought it sounded fun." "I talked to the soldiers who were with them," said Verisika. "Did you learn why they were gone for so long?" Via Farrelia asked. "Yes, one of them was captured by the Rossini." Geshel gasped, but his mother stayed calm. "One of the gods?" she asked. "Yes, Ferron's godson." She frowned. "Elisco of Sederig, godson of Ferron. You spoke with him?" Verisika nodded. "Well, more with Neslicia's grandson, but yes, he was there." "And you saw Ferron's traitor daughter?" Cara asked. Via Farrelia sighed. "Cara Sija, please. Anyway, Verisika, can you tell me what he looks like?" The 2 were good friends after their shared experience at Akisa, but Via Farrelia found Cara's complaints about Zelendites tiring, especially with recent events. Verisika frowned. "Short and blonde. He had his sword on his right side, so he must be left-handed. His friends did most of the talking, and he just mumbled or gestured. Well, Nestlicia's grandson did the talking. I don't think Veron's daughter spoke at all. What about his frozen weapons? Via Farrelia asked. He was wearing orange and a pyramid-shaped hat, Ozen style. He had a sword, shield, and bow. They looked like Esanhelossa, Sorrenso, and D'Arcagna, Verisica said. Via Farrelia sighed. Great. I'm sure you know you won't think he's the other cinco. Alicaria Carasija, I thought she might be right, but this all but confirms it. Verisica frowned. We've talked about it a few times, but I'm not sure. Those are fairly random traits, and what about Elinsko the Mage's apprentice? Elinsko the Mage's apprentice was the youngest and shortest brother of Duchess Varilina of Lesia. He was slightly taller than Linsko, but somehow managed to be even angrier about it than Elinsko Siko, and, like the diminutive duke, had gold eyes. Because of his golden eyes, left-handedness, and diminutive height, there were jokes and rumors about him being the next Arashasiko. He's also a boreling, speaks at normal volumes, and has black hair. Zebbocron thought the young mage's combination of gold eyes and black hair was funny, since those were Akisa's colors. We don't know that those mean anything, though, said Verisica. Via Farrelia inclined her head. Yes, but they're also things the rest of the Arasiki aren't. Anyway, this is Sio we're talking about. What would you expect? Sio appeared, in the form of a Michka with twisted horns and, of course, the purple and yellow jester's hat. Why are we talking about me? Cashel gasped and stared at him with wide eyes. Verisica sighed. Sio, this doesn't concern you. Oh, really? He grinned. Well, now I want to know about it even more. Is it about Areshasiko? Alicaria leaned forward. There be another? Oh, of course. Who? Verisica asked. Sio sighed. Well, don't ask. Now I don't want to tell you. Is it Elinsko of Celery, Goldson of Ferron? Via Farrelia asked. Maybe. He drew out the first syllable and said it in an exaggerated, almost childish tone that made it sound more like a question than a statement. He is, isn't he? Verisica was beginning to tire of Sio's antics. Sio smiled. I'm not going to tell you, he sang. Sio? Via Farrelia's tone was hard. She was in no mood to deal with him. Tadas! Cara snapped at him. Goodbye! Sio disappeared in a fairly calm manner, with no explosions, thunder, or lightning. Instead, he turned into a bird and flew out the window. Alicaria sighed and looked back at Via Farrelia. So what do you think? Do you think he be the Achasico? Alicaria asked. Probably, Via Farrelia said. And since he is, well, that can't mean nothing good. Gesher looked up at her, eyes wide with worry. Is something bad gonna happen, Mother? She sighed. Something bad's already happening. She looked at Cara. What about you? Did the princess say anything? Cara shook her head. Not much. Just what her mother said. I guessed what, but couldn't figure out how to ask that without looking suspicious. You should have just asked who it was and why, Verisica said. Maybe you shouldn't be doing this in your condition. Cara glared at her. And what makes you think you know what I can do in this condition? I've been doing fine, and I didn't ask because it should have been obvious. They make trouble, and they don't like the king yet. Kidnapping one of their guards is a good way to make trouble. Besides, even if I did ask, she wouldn't have told me if he was the Arasika or not. Not to mention, her mob already said it. She was in no mood to be lectured by some overly confident girl who was barely past 20 and had not been on a mission like this in her life, nor probably done anything like the farm work Cara did regularly. Verisica sighed and crossed her arms. Via Farrelia nodded. She's right, and she's a fine spy. Remember, she was there during the business with Agniso. Did quite well. Cara had only broken character once. Cara's expression darkened a little, thinking of her time there. Via Farrelia winced as she mentioned it. Via Farrelia turned to Alicaria. Have you found anything else about Evan Oscar? No, Alicaria sighed. I'll be following them, like you asked, but I haven't seen them do nothing. Maybe they know you're following them? Alicaria looked at her. Via Farrelia, I be not stupid.
I know how to spy on people. It literally be my job, besides fishing. I think they be using dreams to communicate instead of meeting in person. She shrugged. Or maybe I be wrong, and they be not Merisinia and Gilesa Achia. Maybe they just be strange and like pairs. I don't think so. It's the work of my sister, I'm sure, Cara said. Alicaria sighed. You can't just blame everything on her. I don't blame everything on her. Just everything bad having to do with pears. Alicaria frowned. That seems to come up more than it should. Exactly. Getting back on topic, you think they might be talking through dreams? Via Farrelia asked. Alicaria nodded. Either that, or I haven't been keeping a close enough eye on them, or, again, maybe I'll be wrong, and they just be strange. She frowned. Well, I think you should try getting into their dreams, but be careful. We don't want no repeat of what happened with Ducariello. Alicaria nodded again, grimacing at the memory. They had tried to manipulate the Duke of Lascia through his dreams because they were worried the power was going to his head. It did not go well. What resulted was the destruction of several villages, including Alicarias, and a very messy and expensive removal of the Mad Duke. Luckily, Duchess Varilina inherited the title rather than her brother, Brialegno, who was the Lessian version of Zebbocron, so even more brusque. After, Queen Silentha, then still a princess, had refused to speak with Lady Ina. Her daughter had become the only method of communication between the two. Well, if that's all, we'll meet again on the 4th Lumnadi at Monyi. Good luck, said Via Farrelia. Verisica and Alicaria nodded, stood, and left. Cara looked up at Via Farrelia. You seem distant today, she said. Via Farrelia had always been reserved, but this felt different. Via Farrelia sighed. I'm sorry, it's just everything with Dolly Cecil. Cara nodded, trying not to think about the danger of her situation and what would happen to Fiesco if she died. I heard what you said just before I sat down, she said. It ain't the whole truth, is it? It sounded more like a statement than a question. Via Farrelia shook her head. No, it ain't. Cara nodded in understanding, then sighed. Do you want to talk about it? Via Farrelia nodded. I should. You don't have to if you don't wanna, Cara said. Via Farrelia shook her head. No, it's fine, she sighed. I didn't lie. He did die 'cause of the war, but it weren't 'cause of no soldier. Gesell started crying, and his mother held him close. Cara sighed. I'm sorry. I'm fine, she said. And the children are fine, too. She took a long breath. They'd been saying things about us for a long time. You know what it's like. Cara nodded, somewhere between sadly and darkly. Sadly? She knew that it was worse in Via Farrelia's village, though. Well, one day it just... Via Farrelia blinked. I don't know what happened, but everyone just got so angry. I think they were drunk. They started calling me a spy. Well, they didn't say spy, but, kept grabbing at me, wanting to hurt me. Of course, only Cecil stepped in. He and Bobo got me out of there, but then, she sighed, they beat him to death. My eldest, he tried to help, but it just made things worse. She started crying as well. Cara took her hand. Now he's dead too. I wanted to help, but I couldn't move. Cara nodded. She understood that feeling too well. We haven't had the funeral yet, but I don't think most of the people will be there 'cause they're mourning. And it's just gotten worse since then, 'cause they don't got to worry about making Dolly Cecil mad no more. Cara sighed, fighting her own tears. My goodness, I'm sorry. Thankfully, I haven't been through nothing as bad as that, but... She remembered her own experience, the bullying and name-calling that had made her become so bitter, and the things her own daughters and even the boy she had taken in were going through now. Yes, people did insult him for being Soletto, and he often responded in Latin. It hasn't been perfect, she said finally. Oh no, Via Farrelia said. Cara bit her lip, then looked at her friend. You, she sighed. I'm sorry, but you just seem so distant today. You can't shut yourself out from the world. Trust me, it don't work. It just makes things worse. She swallowed hard. I know it's a lot, but this ain't the way to deal with it. You still have a family, and they need you. Via Farrelia took a deep breath. You're right, Cara. I just hope I can. I'm coming to the funeral of Farasisha, Cara said. Bring in Fiasisha and the children too. When is it? Dejadie, Via Farrelia said. Cara nodded. I'll be there. I'm sure the princess will let me go. You want me to stay with you? She asked. Via Farrelia shook her head. You should get back to work. I'll be fine. No, I'm sure the princess won't mind. No, you should go. I've got to go home anyway, said Via Farrelia. All right. Cara sounded unsure. She stood, but then looked back at Via Farrelia. I'm sorry, she said. Agilea magriea ni miravisas. She was the patroness of large families and people who had lost spouses or children. Ira bornod, Via Farrelia said. Agileo carescio el songedio. Ira bornod. Cara left, blinking away tears, renewed anger burning inside of her. She did go to Deoliro and his son's funeral. Surprisingly, Zebbocron was there too, carrying a sword and ready to chase off anyone who wanted to disrespect the dead. He may not have liked Saletti, but he respected the dead, even a dead rebel Saletto farmer. He had run into Via Farrelia outside the tavern and, noticing she was crying, asked what was wrong. She did not tell him, but he guessed it and offered to come to the funeral to chase off anyone who was there to disrespect the dead. The priest gave a homily on how war brings out the worst in people, and emphasized that Beyond made no distinction between Saletto and Selendite.